For the purposes of the paranormal, ITC stands for Instrumental Transcommunication. Now that sounds a little bit confusing to people who are just joining the field, so let's put that into simpler terms. The ITC simply means the use of devices to communicate with spirits. In other words, any spirit communication we do with voice recorders, spirit boxes, TVs, computers, apps, the list goes on, falls under the ITC umbrella. The earliest form of ITC was EVP, or electronic voice phenomena, using a tape recorder and microphone. Alright, so now that we've taken a look at what ITC is, let's go back in time and see where it all began. So to look at the history of ITC, we first have to go back 118 years ago, where in 1901, Russian ethnologist Vladimir Borges traveled to Siberia, where he visited a shaman of the Chechki tribe. It was there in a darkened room that he saw a spirit conjuring ritual. The shaman had begun beating a drum. He started slowly, then continued on, more and more rapidly, inducing a self-trance. All of a sudden, Borges began hearing strange voices in the room. They seemed to come from all corners and were in both English and Russian. Writing about his experience, Borges said, "I set up my equipment so I could record without light. The shaman sat in the furthest corner of the room, approximately 20 feet away from me. When the light was extinguished, the spirits appeared after some hesitation and, following the wishes of the shaman, spoke into the horn of the phonograph." This is the first known experiment in which the voices of conjured spirits were caught on an electronic recording device. Let's listen to an audio clip recorded by Borges. This next example is more hearsay, so can't be used as scientific proof, but in 1910, a Brazilian Catholic altar boy witnessed his priest, Father Roberto Landel, communicating with a small box. Landel would speak to the box and it would speak back. Because any spirit communication other than prayer was not approved by the Catholic Church, Father Landel was reluctant to share any details regarding the box publicly. In the 1920s, a well-known inventor, Thomas Alva Edison, is said to have been working on a spirit communication device. His assistant, Dr. Miller Hutchison, wrote, "Edison and I are convinced that in the fields of psychic research, it will be discovered facts that will prove of greater significance to the thinking of the human race than all the inventions we've ever made in the field of electricity." Now, Edison himself wrote, "If our personality survives, then it is strictly logical or scientific to assume that it retains memory, intellect, other faculties, and knowledge that we acquire on this earth. Therefore, if we can evolve an instrument so delicate as to be affected by our personality as it survives in the next life, such an instrument, when made available, ought to record something." Now, unfortunately, Edison died before he could complete his invention, but as he lay dying, he remarked to his physician, "It's very beautiful over there." Now, Edison was a scientist, very factual, and as a scientist would never have said such a thing unless he believed it to be true. Around 1925, Brazilian researcher Oscar Darnagal wrote the book Voices from the Beyond by Telephone, which contained details of his long telephone dialogues with spirit friends, including many interesting verifications and explanations of how the spirit collaborators made the calls. In 1936, American photographer Attila von Zali began experimenting with a record cutter and had moderate success capturing spirit voices on phonograph records. In the 1940s, he had a better success with a wire recorder. Marcello Bocci of Grosseto, Italy began experimenting in the paranormal in 1949. Bocci recorded audio of voices coming from an old vacuum tube radio. The spirit team developed around his work and they spoke to him through the radio's sounds. Bocci became well known and many people would visit him in his lab at home. Very often, their departed loved ones would talk to them through Mr. Bocci's radio. Bocci continues to use the radio to this day. His spirit friends not only talk, but also sing to him. Alright, well that brings us to the conclusion of the first 50 years of ITC Spirit Communication. I want to thank you guys so much for watching, and if you enjoyed this topic, please consider liking or subscribing. Until next time, stay true, keep believing, and I'll see you in the comments.